This is not the Weimar Constitution in 1933, where the Chancellor of Germany and the President just dissolved the Reichstag. It's not going to work that way in the United States.
But let's start with this. We'll go to the States. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been named Donald Trump's pick for Health and Human Services Secretary. In a statement, the president elect said Kennedy, a known vaccine skeptic, would help protect Americans from, and I quote, harmful chemicals, pollutants, pesticides, pharmaceutical products, and food additives, end quote. It comes as Senator Dick Durbin, the sitting chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, has asked the House Ethics Committee to, and I quote, preserve and share their report on Congressman Matt Gaetz. Trump nominated the Florida lawmaker as his attorney general yesterday. It's an announcement that's been greeted with some shock in Washington. Richard Painter is a former chief White House ethics lawyer under the Bush administration, and you later, Richard, ran as a Democrat politician. Welcome to the program.
Well, thank you for having me.
First of all, let's deal with the latest. We're talking about RFK Jr. as Health and Human Services Secretary. And a lot of people thought, no, that was just Trump campaigning. He'll do something different when he governs in prose. But no, he's gone ahead and probably said, reject him if you dare. What do you think of this?
Well, it will be up to the United States Senate to decide whether to confirm Robert Kennedy Jr. as Secretary of Health and Human Services. And I await that hearing. It might be quite entertaining. But of even more concern right now to the American people is the role of the Attorney General of the United States, Matt Gaetz, as the nominee.
Why do you say it's more concerning then, Richard?
Well, the health department is very important, but in the United States, our health care is not provided by the government. It's provided by private providers, and we pay our insurance. Of course, insurance is sky high. The cost of health is sky high in the United States, but there's not that much that the Health and Human Services Department can do about that. If Congress wants to pass laws to try to fix our healthcare system and make health insurance less expensive, they could do that. But I don't see that happening in this administration. And RFK may make a bit of a fool of himself in that position. But it's not as if you were putting someone in charge of the entire national health service of the type that you have.
But it still sends a signal about this administration, this White House. What signal do you think it sends?
Well, it sends a signal that they don't take health care very seriously, which may convince a lot of Americans we're better off with private health care than government health care. Certainly, if you're going to have the government involved in health care, you wouldn't want someone like RFK Jr. running the health department. I don't really think he knows what he's talking about. But he can have a very entertaining hearing in front of the U.S. Senate. The problem with the Attorney General position is there's real power there. That's the power to direct the United States attorneys all over the United States to conduct criminal investigations. And Donald Trump has talked about investigating and maybe indicting some of his political enemies. And that's a very dangerous state of affairs if we have a wild cowboy type there in the Attorney General's job. And Matt Gaetz really seems to fit that profile. So his Senate confirmation hearing could very well be very explosive. And he already has some very, I would say, challenging issues in his background. And those are the subject of the U.S. House Ethics Committee investigation. And that investigation should be released. It was going to be released this week, but he resigned from the House, I believe, to try to forestall its release. But the U.S. Senate will insist on seeing a copy of the ethics investigation in the U.S. House before they confirm him. Now, complicating matters, President Trump has a plan that apparently is being talked about to have the Congress go into recess in January as soon as he becomes president, even though they will have been on a long recess over the Christmas holidays, but to go on recess again in January so he can appoint all of these people through so-called recess appointments without the confirmation by the Senate. And
Won't that require the permission of senior senators? I'm just looking at Senator John Cornyn of Texas, and he's a Republican on the Judiciary Committee, and he says he absolutely wants to see the Ethics Committee's final report into Matt Gaetz. And there are other Republicans, senior Republicans, who've got a lot of heft on Capitol Hill who feel the same way. Would they really just roll over and allow the president to appoint these people during a confected recess?
Well, I think it would anger the Senate a great deal. And there's a plan to try to do this, but we get the House of Representatives to vote into recess and then take advantage of a provision of the U.S. Constitution that might allow the president to decide the length of the recess if there's a disagreement between the two houses. This would be an abuse of a constitutional loophole by the president to call Congress into a recess. And I think it's a very, very dangerous one. The Republicans will only hold the U.S. House of Representatives by 2 or 3 seats, and if they try this stunt in January, they're very likely to lose those seats in 2 years in the elections. I don't think the public voted for Donald Trump because they wanted him to be playing games here and doing everything on his own.
Didn't they vote him in, knowing that he was like this, knowing that he's a disruptor, knowing that he's a guy who's been accused and indeed convicted of breaking some serious laws, others not so serious. And this is what they want. This is what they voted for, and they see him as a victim of judicial overreach, lawfare, weaponization of the Department of Justice. And so then, if he appoints a Rottweiler like Gaetz as Attorney General, then there you go. That's what they wanted, and they want him to go for his enemies.
Well, I mean, some voters wanted that. Some voters may have just been voting against the Democrats because they're dissatisfied with Joe Biden or for whatever reason. But Donald Trump will become president, but pursuant to our Constitution, and the U.S. Senate has to confirm these nominees. And if he tries to end run around the Republicans in the Senate, trying to use the Republicans in the House to do that, he's going to create chaos on Capitol Hill. He is not going to be able to dissolve Congress permanently. This is not the Weimar Constitution in 1933, where the Chancellor of Germany and the President just dissolved the Reichstag. It's not going to work that way in the United States. He either plays ball with Congress pursuant to the United States Constitution, or he's going to lose the support of the Republicans.
Really? But it's his party now. It's been made in his image. A couple of years ago, 4 years ago, say, it was still a Republican Party. There were some senior Republicans who held their noses and agreed with much of what Trump was proposing or trying to get through. But some of those guys are retiring, like Mitch McConnell, the senior senator, the former leader of the Senate. They're kind of yesterday's men now, and this is very much his party, both in the Senate and in the House.
He has a lot of influence in the Republican Party, that's for sure. But I think there's going to be a limit of what the Senate and the House are going to tolerate. And the U.S. Senate is very protective of its own turf, and they have the constitutional right to confirm or not confirm these nominees. And if the president's going to be running around behind the back of the Senate and try to pit the U.S. House against the Senate, I don't think this is going to end very well. And we will be going to the polls again in 2 years. Yeah. And the American people could get very upset. In 2 years into Donald Trump's first presidency, the Democrats won the House of Representatives. While the Democratic Party did a really shabby job with this campaign, and I thought Kamala Harris was a good nominee, but President Biden stepped out of the race way, way too late, only gave her 107 days. The Democrats really messed up this time, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't come back.
All right.
Very, very